I've learned about Tumescent Liposuction, which is actually awake.
Wow.
And so they inject a numbing fluid wherever they go while they go, and you are awake for it. And full transparency.
I couldn't take it.
It's very,
oh my goodness.
It's very uncomfortable. Like, and
it's just,
some people are sitting there like looking at their phone, hanging out. I was not on the phone.
Welcome to the From Within podcast with Ben Osterveld.
Hey guys, welcome to From Within podcast. Today we have Ashley Perona. I just literally said before we push record, I got to say your name right. And guess what? Stumbled right out of the gate. So Perona. Sorry, Ashley. So thanks for coming on the show. Ashley, we've known each other for a little while indirectly. We've had some interactions together, but in the late, I've been watching your journey on Instagram, and it definitely caught my eye because you're standing there almost naked, and you've got like these scars and these bruisings. I'm like, what the heck is going on? It's definitely caught my eye. You've had some your journey is definitely something I was excited to share on this podcast. You've done a ton of plastic surgery in an operation, and you've been sharing that journey. And I love the fact that you've been so open and real. So Ashley, thank you so much for being on the show and being this open to have a conversation about something that I'm learning is a little bit more taboo.
For sure. Thanks for having me, Ben. I'm super excited to be here. And just in full transparency, you're probably like my first podcast ever. So that means you're definitely the first person I'm having an open conversation about this journey that I just embarked on. So I'm happy to share what I know. And I know you like raw and real and vulnerable. And so it's probably about as raw and real as it's going to get.
Yeah, I do love that. I think that's where we can cut the chase and get connected pretty quickly in life. And I think that's missing everywhere in so many places. I appreciate you taking that risk and jumping on my show. Like, I really appreciate that. It's not like, I don't look at it as anything, but, and I first podcast, I'm thinking, well, I'm a lucky guy. So I'm super excited about that. Why don't we just get right to the chase, right out of the gate? I'm going to hear your backstory. I'd love to talk about your inner world, how you've overcome things in your life and everything, and what led you up to doing all these surgeries. But why don't we just start right now and say, what the heck did you do? What was the plastic surgery?
So I'm going to rewind just a little bit because what you've seen on Instagram is not my first rodeo with plastic surgery or what you would call like body contouring. Okay. First and foremost, I've always been a relatively thin and athletic person. I work out quite a bit, and I am very into nutrition and eating well. And, there's just always these kind of stubborn little areas that I have not loved about myself, like lower stomach, outer thighs, inner thighs. So my first stint with doing some of this cosmetic reshaping, if you will, was in 2018. I took a more non-invasive approach, and I tried something called Coolsculpting. And they are these devices that they hook up to certain regions, and essentially it flushes a ton of cold water for a certain period of time. So it actually freezes the fat cells and interacts with the nerve endings, and then they massage it out. And it takes I would say 6 weeks to kind of see the final results. And wherever you do it, it kind of reduces the fat about 25% on average. So I started with that, and I just wasn't really happy with those results. So in 2019, about August, I decided, I'm still not happy with these areas. I'm actually going to go check out some lipo options, and more like contouring lipo, not your traditional, pretty large BMI lipo. And I kind of rushed into that decision, and I trusted the doctor, and he had pretty good reviews on his website. And so I had about 13 areas touched up, and that was a really brutal recovery. And I could tell immediately that I wasn't super happy with the results in areas. And, that led me to believe that even certain areas were not done. And he kind of made me feel crazy about that. And so we went back and forth, and that relationship completely tarnished. And, I shrunk in weight, which kind of hid some of my asymmetry that I was left with. But, that's after spending all that money and going through that recovery, which you're kind of seeing, which my first recovery was way worse than this one on Instagram. Wow. It left me in a mental state where it's like, wow, I went through all of that and I don't know if I like myself better or worse. And so I really wanted that asymmetry fixed. And, so earlier this summer, because of COVID, and I kind of got stuck in the United States, I was actually supposed to be traveling around the world. I was like, I should probably reinvestigate this since I have the time. So I found a doctor in La Jolla, and I really wanted the asymmetry fixed. So he was able to help me revise that. And then I learned what this thing is called a BBL. I didn't know what it was. It's actually called a Brazilian butt lift. And essentially what it is they take the fat from different parts of your body after they do the liposuction. And there's this whole clean, contained system. And they essentially take it and do fat transfer. They're able to harvest those cells without damaging them, clean them, and then re-inject them into different parts of your body. So the traditional areas would be the buttocks and or the breasts. So a lot of females are actually having their implants taken out and they're replacing it with their own fat. Yeah, so I had that done in September, and then crazily 10 days later, I have been flirting with this idea of a breast augmentation for, I don't know, the better part of 12 years. And I finally decided to pull the trigger on that one. So 10 days after I had my second lipo with the BBL, I got a breast augmentation as well. And I did not have enough fat, not clearly, but I did not have enough fat to do breasts and buttocks. And then, there's some things with breasts that I've heard that made me shy away from doing fat transfer there. I think it still needs to improve a little bit. So that is essentially what I have done to myself. I'm about 7 weeks post-op from the lipo and BBL, and about 4 to 5 weeks post-op on the breast augmentation.
It's funny how ignorant I was until I started, and I still am, how ignorant I was. I didn't know. And you just have such an external view of just, plastic surgery. But when you started showing the whole process and how you've recovered and all these different things, you were wearing some pretty crazy outfits, definitely
super sexy, right?
And it's interesting. I didn't know what you had to go through. You got the giant beanbag chair. You got these these Spanx kind of things. And I realized you can't sit down. All these things are oh yeah, I was so interested. But you know what? I got to say something. It's so crazy because I got a confession is that I'm that guy. Here's the crazy thing. And I feel bad about it, but I'm that guy totally judging people. And I didn't realize, because obviously I don't judge you as a person, and I like you, Ashley, and and it's great. So I would never judge you, but I realized because I'm watching you go through this, someone that I would be fond of, I had these thoughts of oh, insecure girls doing plastic surgery. And I kind of feel bad for even saying it now, but I don't give a shit. I think there's a lot of people doing this. The thing is, I'm looking at it, not you, but looking at the industry. Girls just want big boobs because they're insecure. Girls just want now it's butts. Now, I'm that old man looking at the TV going, oh, those insecure girls. And I'm holy shit, I would never say that to your face. And I just kind of connected because what you did, I realized it's just something I've never even looked at because it's not in front of me. And I'm oh my goodness, I really judge plastic surgery as in a way when I've never, ever, ever given anyone a chance to I learned nothing about it, total ignorant. So I just wanted to tell you that's kind of where I approach it. That part of me is a little selfish by bringing you on here. It's kind of my own way of connecting with getting rid of this judgment that I don't know, maybe I was adopted it at one point, but I definitely don't want it anymore. So do you did you realize the judgment that was potentially happening? Do you have girls reaching out to you in some level? Give me like, I'm the bad guy here. I'm the guy that represents that. What was that a thing that went through your head, and how does that affect plastic surgery in girls right now?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I'll let you off the hook a little bit. I don't think that you're the only one. I would have to say that you're probably the majority. And I had a lot of people very close to me who were concerned about my mental stability and not loving myself. And, you know, you should just be happy with what God gave you or what you were born with, depending on your ideology. And, you know, that's something that I definitely processed as well. But by sharing this journey, which I kind of like unexpectedly did it. And the reason why is I was a very private person. I don't even think I posted on Instagram for the first time until like November 2018. So I was leaving corporate America. I wanted to start this custom cape company. And I was like, you know what? I have to start putting myself out there and building a brand. So I started posting and I was like, what can people relate to? And the first journey I was actually going to share with people, since we bring it up, was ayahuasca. I tried ayahuasca, the sort of God elixir or molecule last December, and I had everything recorded and I was going to share it after the fact. And I made cute little like,
I want to see that.
Well, so I was, and a lot of people were interested, but for me, it actually ended up being a flop experience. So
interesting. So you're like, you're thinking this big breakthroughs.
Yes. I mean, the amount of mental preparation that I went through with the diet and prepping and setting intentions, and really just because I've heard bad stories. Like when you go into it, you could be on this 8-hour ride of just, hell.
I know people are sick for days. I know lots of people that's gone through it. Most people are like pretty amazed. But there's been some crazy stories, like there is.
Yeah, I think just the setting that we had, I don't want to discount it at all. I do think that could be sublimely like transformative for people.
Yeah.
I just think it was the wrong setting. I think I would probably actually go to Peru and have a legitimate shaman. And my experience, we did it more in a group setting. I would like to have an individual shaman looking after me and have a private space and have time to go quiet and introspect. Because when you're in a room full of people with purging, your senses are so heightened that you can get distracted very quickly. And I also don't think that I had enough of the medicine. So because I could not report an amazing transformative experience, I actually elected not to share. Plus I was also a little nervous putting all that stuff on my feed, considering like customs and immigration, it is considered illegal. And I was going to be traveling around the world, that I didn't want any of those flags to be raised. So after that, you know, I experimented with plant-based diets earlier this year, and I documented a lot of that, and there was some interest. But you know, when I came into this plastic surgery, I was like, I'm just going to put it out there. I'm just going to see what happens. Maybe I'm going to get a whole bunch of backlash. Maybe I'm not. And I wanted to do it more in real time instead of like collecting everything and like doing it after the fact. Because usually people are like, okay, I'll share it if it ends out well. And I'm like, well, shit, if it doesn't end up well, like, I think that should be part of the journey as well.
Yeah. I think that's what we just want real. Like,
yeah.
Yeah.
So I did have that fear. And like, I didn't share things to Facebook because I have a lot more family that looks at that feed. So I made sure that I was really diligent with my stories and with my posting, that stayed on Instagram itself. But I will tell you that I have not had one negative comment. I had one questionable one, and I think it was just shifting perspective from it. I've even had males reach out and like, you're slaying this. I can't believe you shared this. And it's been amazing to see the women that have reached out to me. Like, I'm talking to people around the world, like not just in the United States. And people who are nervous, who are frightened, who don't like, I've had people who have put deposits down and are thinking of backing out of the whole thing because it's not for the faint of heart. And
Yeah.
the one thing that I've learned with plastic surgery, it's not perfect. And you're talking to a perfectionist. I still have issues right now. And you go through this mental battle with yourself of like, was it worth it? Like I've spent, I'll be frank, in all of my things with recovery and transportation, I'm probably shy of $30,000 and at least 10 months of my life because I was botched last year. Wow. And now that doctor actually has a claim at the medical board against him, which I'm still waiting to hear back on.
So what do you say? What do you say to these people that judge this whole thing? Like, is there truth to it? Is there truth to the judgment? And also, what would you say to these people? Like, how could you educate guys like that are girls and guys that don't understand what's going on?
So I do think there are plenty of people out there who have used plastic surgery as a crutch, and we're used to seeing the ones on Botched who look like blow up dolls, and they've had like umpteen surgeries, and it is an addiction. But for the most part, it's just people who are looking in a mirror and they're insecure about themselves. And that projects, like, you want to look in the mirror and feel beautiful, like not mostly for yourself, but then that like carries outward to everyone else that you're interacting with, just your inner confidence of who you are and with partners. And the one thing that I found is like, wow, a lot more people are battling body image issues than I have ever imagined.
Probably everyone, Ashley. I think it's got to be everyone. Like if the guy that's like, you got even the people that are like, I'm fine, I don't care how I look. That's just because you gave up. But they care.
Correct. Oh yeah, they care about their chin. They're like, oh man, I don't have a chin. I have the under chin. Oh man, what are these love handles that are like sticking out? Oh, I got this weird gut. Like everyone is insecure. And so what I've been finding is that the people who are extremely judgmental, they're essentially projecting their insecurities on you because you actually decided to do something. Now, I don't think that plastic surgery is a cure-all, and I don't think that people should be using it as a weight loss tool. It should be like a perfecting mechanism that helps you with your confidence. But I do think there is, there's with everything, there's like a bell curve. You could go completely overboard. And I think it's knowing that and doing enough introspection and going to enough therapy and, talking to people and working on yourself to know what that line is. Because even after these procedures, a few people, boyfriend and best friend included, they're like, this is it, right? Like, is it going to be enough? Is it going to be enough? Mm-hmm. And I'm going to be fully transparent. I am not happy with some of my asymmetry. I am going to go talk to my doctor again next week, but I've also been down the rabbit hole of probably 20 different non-invasive methods to get that last 5-10% because I was not asymmetrical prior to this whole journey.
Is perfection even possible, Ashley? Is it?
What?
Is it? Is it to like? Is it? That's like, it seems like an insanity to me. Like man, if you get good results and it's like, well, a little bit of here, a little bit there. Is there really like? It's almost like, is it? Can you get it?
I think so. Everyone's definition or realm of perfection is different. So I have seen some amazing results. If I would have gone to my doctor and not gone to the gentleman who did me last year.
Gotcha.
And once you have a surgery and someone else touches you, it's considered a revision. When you do a revision, complexity increases like tenfold.
Yeah.
So if my doctor that I went to this last time probably would have gotten me fresh, I probably would have came out symmetrical.
Interesting.
He was fighting an uphill battle with all the nicks and grooves that my other guy had. So just full transparency, I do not think my first doctor did my left flank or my left side at all. And he refused to admit it. He made me feel like I was crazy. It got to the point where I started recording our conversations in the office. And then he butchered my right side. So he didn't blend it. He kind of took like a big chunk out. And so my left side actually looks really nice for my new doctor, but because he messed up my right side, he it's hard to like match that.
Yeah.
So
So give me a little bit of idea of this, of the recovery, like, and that process, like, because I don't think people understand, like, we see the results and, you know, at the end, people love showing the end product, right? But like, just to help understand, if no one's watched you, I'm sure people jump on your Instagram now, but like, if you actually explain it to someone, like, and what you've had to buy, like, give me a little bit of a picture of what that was.
I think that's exactly why I kind of documented this journey, because I'm so sick of seeing this, like, hey, look at this before picture. And then like 3 months later, ooh, I'm so sexy. And it's like,
and it's like magic.
Everything in between.
That's right.
And I want people to know that, because when you go into a plastic surgeon, they're going to sell you the best case scenario. My first surgeon was like, yeah, some of my people are working out 48 hours later. Oh, hell no. Wow. Oh, hell nah, you're not. It looks like you took a baseball bat to my body. And like, every time, the first time you take off that compression garment, the faja, like Cameron, my boyfriend, was actually going to go back up to Vancouver. I took that thing off. I almost passed out in the bathtub and in the shower, just looking at yourself and just, the vagal nerve response. And I almost passed out this last time. But people just underestimate what that does to your body. And not only the physical part, but how it then is amplified into the mental aspect. Like, so a lot of people have partners, they have kids, they have jobs. So you have to really plan this out. And like, you definitely want like at least 2 weeks off, because they've essentially detached your skin from your muscle. And you have these little bungee cords that keep them together. So you remove this like layer of fat. You've completely destroyed that. So your skin is kind of just like sitting on top of your muscle, just floating around. Your lymphatic system is completely in haywire, which is what drains your fluids through your armpits and your groin. And it basically has to re-heal or reconnect itself. So it's just like, you're swollen, you feel like a stuffed sausage, you look worse than when you went in, and the BBL part, I grossly underestimated that. The whole not sitting on your butt.
Yeah, like, what did you do? Like, you definitely take my butt for granted when it comes to sitting. Like, it's not the first thing I'm going, like, it's like you've never actually considered how much you on your ass. You know, like I thought about that when I saw, I'm like, oh yeah, she can't sit.
No, you cannot sit. I'm even sitting on the fancy little pillow right now still, but like, you can't even lay on your back, and you can't lay on your side, because most females get your hip dips, which is on the outside of your hips, done. And they're the most sensitive cells that you could lose. So like, you have to be flat on your stomach, and your neck is like this, trying to sleep. And it's unbelievably uncomfortable. So that's why I got the bean bag. But the first few days, when you get up, because usually most females get their whole abdominal wall done, it feels like knives, like fiery knives have been stuck on you when you're trying to like elevate and use your abdominal wall to like sit up. Like, I was doing these weird things where I'd be on my stomach, and then I'd like scoot over like this on the bed, and then slowly push myself off instead of like using my abs to sit up. It's just...
You also know how much your abs help you.
Yes. So it's just, and then you're like, your partner is with you, and you're like, God, if you still think that I'm sexy after this, amen.
You definitely underestimate the abs. Like, any kind of abdominal injury, even, you realize very quickly how those muscles help you with everything.
Oh yeah, it's just so sore. And then you have to go get it massaged about 3 days afterwards to help with the drainage of the fluid, the lymphatic. So then allowing someone to sit there and touch you and rub you after you like, literally, this is the motion. They're like jabbing you with this metal thing called a cannula with a hole in it to extract the fat. And now this woman is going in and like disrupting it. And so, and it's such a painful process. It's a mentally draining process, and it's ridiculously expensive. That's like crazy. Even after the procedure, I think people underestimate how much you're spending on garments, how much you're spending on accessories, buying that lounger, an inflatable mattress, you're spending at least like 120 to 200 bucks a pop for massages. And you need to have them done every 1 to 2 days, 2 to 3 days, for like the first 3 weeks. So,
and so you did three, or what did you do? How many in one shot? Because I saw you mentioned that one time, you like, it wasn't like the butt, the hips, like did you just go in there and just, and the breasts, and like, was it all done at the same time, Ashley?
yeah. So because of the pricing, and I actually elected for an awake lipo this time. So there's one where you can go under general anesthesia, which was my first one. You wanted
to make sure it's done.
Yes. Probably. So my general anesthesia, you're at the mercy of the doctor, and they're flopping you around on the table, and you're hoping that it comes out right. So this time I've learned about Tumescent Liposuction, which is actually awake. Wow. And so they inject a numbing fluid wherever they go, while they go, and you are awake for it. And full transparency,
I couldn't take it. Oh my goodness.
It's very uncomfortable. Like, and some people are sitting there like looking at their phone, hanging out. I was not on the phone. So
you're just like, it's like, that should really hurt. You're looking at it like, that should probably hurt.
And then like I was kind of videoing it, and I'm like, oh God, I can't even look. I'm just gonna and they gave you a couple Valium to calm you down, and then you have access to laughing gas for my particular doctor. But after
I'd be hitting the gas hard. I'd be like, give me that gas.
Well, and then they do monitor that. So I've heard that a couple people get it taken away because they're abusing it.
But yeah, still feel it. Still feeling it. Just give me. That's funny. So actually, it's really cool. I looked at your website, and I know that it's called Ever Wander, right? Or Ever Wander. And I didn't realize before, when I asked you to come on the show, I didn't realize like you have this crazy vision to like travel to like 70 some countries, document your journey. And I'm like, wow, there's some layers here, Ashley. It's like so cool. Tell me about what's going on. And I'll make sure I put your website link on the show notes on the website, because I think it's a great website. I know you're not totally finished yet, but by the time people listen to this, it'll all be all polished up, I'm sure. And it's so great. I read it. I love your copy. It's written so well and drew me in. Tell me, what is this? What's going on with that?
I'm glad you mentioned that. So I was a corporate girl for a long, long time. I was essentially like a Salesforce guru, if you will. I spent about 10 years in the space, saw it from all different realms, and I hit this stopping point where I'm like, I am so over corporate America. I am so sick of putting all this blood, sweat, and tears into these jobs, being stressed out every time a project gets done. It's not good enough, or you need to start a new one. And I just had left leading a team at Ticketmaster for how they used all of Salesforce for the client information. So thinking like, all of the venues, all the sports teams, all the colleges, like I ran that. And I'm like, I feel like I have one foot in the grave. And with all of the stress, I built this team of amazing, badass women. I really, really helped them. And, just with corporate politics and not respecting leadership, I was like, I'm so over this. So I quit corporate America, and I'm like, I have to figure something else out, which that was really hard in and of itself. Like leaving that amazing cush job with all that income coming in.
It's like logically, what are you doing? Right?
Oh yeah. And then again, with the judgment, everyone around you being like, what are you doing? Are you smoking crack?
Yeah. Why are you throwing it away? What are you doing?
You have job security.
Well, security is rated really high with the previous generation, to be honest. Security is a very, very, it's the god of all things. It's funny, like it's like my parents and even my grandparents, like I think coming out of a war and depression, I get it. But like security is rated so high. It's like I remember growing up, my dad's like, you know what, Ben, whatever you do, make sure you get a trade. Make sure you at least have a trade to fall back on, because that's what you need. Obviously he was, like and it's the same belief. Yeah, you challenge people's beliefs when you do these crazy things. So you got sick of corporate America. I read on your site that you were just a workaholic, driven, but stressed out, drinking a bit more than you should, going through this, and the results of this security was that.
Yeah. And it was just like, you know, I could envision, like, looking in the mirror. I'm like, I don't even know who I am anymore. And I could foresee myself having a heart attack in my 40s. Like this cannot, even though like I was capable and intelligent enough to do it, like I'm also just not a person that is shady. I'm very open. I'm very honest. And to get to that certain level in corporate America, I don't care who you are, there's a certain level of shadiness to it. And you're doing deals with the devil and doing back channeling.
Do what you got to do, right?
Yeah, and I'm not a dog eat dog kind of person. I'm like, hey, let's like figure this out together, and I'm not gonna roll you under the bus. So please don't do it to me. Like, so I just was like, you know, I don't respect the leader that was in front of me or like on top of me that kind of inherited our team. And I was just about to go on a trip to Europe for 5.5 weeks, and I'm like, you know what, I'm out. I have to figure out something else. So
I love that so much. I love those pull the trigger on, and I like that. I call it betting on yourself. And when you don't know the truth and you don't know what to do, but you just know what you don't want to do, it's sometimes you just got to take that bet.
Yeah. And so I ventured into entrepreneurship. I briefly mentioned the capes, and I don't want to get stuck in them. They were super cute, but ultimately I wanted adults to tap into their inner 5-year-old. And what I found out is it's really hard for adults to do that, to be the
totally hard.
Yeah. So if I'm in the room and I have something like this on or a cape, everyone wants to join in. But for the consumer to be sitting at home and they're like, oh, should I buy this cape? And if I get it, would I actually put it on and wear it outside? No, people are going to be afraid of what I'm afraid of what people think of me. So I think the cape will resurrect itself in the future in a different form. Probably a seminar to help women overcome shame, trauma, and tap into their vulnerability. So I'm glad I went through the exercise. It was the best like training I could have ever asked for. But I went to Croatia last October with my boyfriend, and we were actually kind of at a stalemate. We were almost at the point where we were going to break up. And we ended up staying on that trip, and we got really deep. Like, one great thing about my relationship is like we can tell each other anything. Like, so important. I think that that's so lost in a lot of relationships, like communication. Like they hide things. They don't feel like they could say their true feelings.
Or even hiding things to make sure they don't get upset is the same result. It's like, I don't want to make you upset. I'm doing great. What that means is I can't trust you because you won't challenge me. You won't say nothing. That's another side of it. I think people are, you get me excited because I get that world so well. And it's like, people need to talk. They need to be real. I say risk it.
So he mentioned on that trip, because I had mentioned it before, and he's like, why don't you go travel? Because he did a year-long trip around the world. I think he visited 18 countries when he was 25. Cool. Granted, I'm a little bit older, and you know, my trip would look a lot differently, but we had done like 15 countries last year. And I think I'm now around like 21, 25 countries, but the bulk of them happened in 2019. And because I went to Europe for the first time and I felt really safe, I felt like with technology and the translation and everything like that, like I was made to think, again, societal norms and the status quo, chase the American dream, you know, stay in that dreamy hamster wheel, get the white picket fence, get married, have kids. I've like questioned all of them.
Yeah.
And so I was like, travel, especially as a female, is so taboo. I'm going to get taken. I'm going to be sex trafficked. You know, that was a story that I was fed my whole life. And so finally, because we went, it opened up that door of possibility where I'm like, you know, I am really not liking where the United States is going. I am so over our politics and our polarity. And I was just like, you know, I need to get out. So that trip, I got this little kitty notebook in Hungary, in Budapest. And I just started like making crazy notes about like every city, every country that had piqued my interest. And Cameron was telling me all about, you know, how to travel with the backpack, what to bring. So I still have this notebook, and that basically spawned this whole trip around the world. which ended up being about 72 countries across 6 continents. And, you know, we said it would take maybe about 2 weeks per country on average. So that's about 3 to 5 years. But now that I've gone through the exercise, I almost don't think that I will come back. I will be some semblance of a global nomad after that point. And that's our goal once I'm done. So like, I'll pick the places that I want to go back to and live in for 1 to 6 months. So I was actually supposed to leave on that trip. Like, I sold my house. I sold all my things. Like, I watched the documentary Minimalism on Netflix. And, you know, I'm just figuring out how to live with less stuff and trade that in for a more experience-based life.
So much. Love it. I just love the hippie. Love it so much. I love breaking every rule out there. I knew there was something about you. I love that stuff so much.
Fitting your life into a 55-liter backpack is unreal.
Yeah. Like, it's so crazy. I love it. It's so cool. And why not?
Yes.
One life. You got one life.
Oh, and then, you know, I figured, you know, I have a certain amount of savings because, again, I was in a lucrative career, which I'm extremely thankful for. And I just figured that, you know, I will figure out a monetization strategy on the road. And I'm actually, so you mentioned my copy.
Money.
Yeah. So you mentioned my copy. So I've really been working on my copy since leaving corporate America, because there isn't any problem that can't be solved with the right sales letter and the written word. Like, we're always selling one another in every interaction, regardless of what form. So, and then I've been looking into digital courses. So, you know, it's funny with the whole lipo and BBL thing. I'm like, these women really need help, and they need to like have all the information before the surgery, not after the fact. So, you know, I may create
if you build it out, you get sponsored by products, you do all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
You just be yourself, and there's this amazing time to be living. Amazing time, easy to make money.
Right.
It really is.
I originally wanted to create a course where it was just quit your ... and fill in the blank. So it was going to be just quit your shitty job, just quit your shitty relationship, just quit your shitty friendship, just quit your shitty drinking habit. You know, that's something that I've also embarked on in the last little bit. I'm a little bit over 4 months sober. Cool. And I finally quit alcohol. I'm not saying that it's a forever thing, but it just was not serving me any longer. And there were a lot more negatives that were coming out of it versus pros. So I'm on that journey. But the thing with the website in particular, it's not your traditional travel website. It isn't going to be like 7 tips for going to Thailand. It's really, I've labeled my blog part as my diary. Yeah. And what I want to do is like, you're going to get into the inner workings of my mind and introspection and my personal growth by going to these different countries and doing these experiences. And, you know, for me, I would like to at least volunteer once in every country that I visit, and maybe even interview women in different parts of the world that have experienced traumatic experiences, and really showing that even the person next door has gone through, regardless if you're in the United States or you're in Cambodia, we've all gone through traumatic things. And I think we hold them in too much. And then they manifest in weird ways that end up being a block for like your true potential.
Self-sabotage and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah.
So if you were to say, if I said, you want to inspire someone or some people, who are these people?
I would probably say, you know, you got to niche down. And that's one thing I've been researching. You know, I want to get it all, but it's like, you got to start somewhere. So my initial niche would be for younger, middle-aged, successful females who are professional and financially stable, who just feel stuck, or like life was not what they painted it to be. Like, fuck this.
Yeah.
And, you know, I think travel is huge for most people, but I almost want to create a community of firsts. no matter how big or how small. I think actually having the courage to step outside of your comfort zone and trying one thing new has like evolved me to the person that I am. Like, whether it's trying a new food, or, you know, I was really against yoga, or then I was really against meditation. Then I was really against like breath work.
It's
And then
funny.
like,
It's funny how we evolve, hey?
yeah,
So
then I was
funny.
against gratitude journaling. And it's like all of those incremental firsts are what have gotten me to this place to be confident enough to take off and travel the world by myself. And then, you know, quit corporate America, start questioning things, and then, you know, bringing it full circle, being transparent enough to share my whole vulnerable story of getting jabbed with lipo and BBL and just throwing it out there.
It's so cool. I think you've got definitely a lot to offer when it comes to so many women out there are not open. And I think there's a place where the comparison is unbelievably hindering. And the fact that you're just kind of bashing through the doors and be like, I guess I'm just going to show it all. I think that's probably the most powerful thing, just in my singular opinion, you can do, is just to literally show people who you are. And I think that's really cool that you're doing that. That's more inspirational than teaching or techniques and some bullshit like that. It's like, I'm going to literally put myself out there and hopefully someone else can be inspired. I love that.
And I like that you touched on that, because I had a really hard time with this. I think that we are being talked at so much every day. You. Everyone takes their antidotes, and you. And my thing is like, I don't want to talk at you. If you want to follow my journey, and I'm going to talk in the first person, and if that somehow triggers something in you to inspire you, that's great. And I'm really good at talking to people and helping them like ask the right questions and to get to the next level. But my message is not like people like, you need to do this. I'm hoping that I can garner inspiration through sharing my perspective specifically.
It's so true. It's so true. Like I've evolved myself as a coach. And when you first start, you try to share your knowledge and you realize you're trying to compete with Google. And you realize very quickly, you're like, oh, yeah, I guess Google knows everything. And so what do I have to offer? And that's where you start coaching. It's like knowledge is actually really low value, but it's like, if you can help someone break through, if you can help them be honest with themselves, if you can maybe get them to see who they are, if you can like that inner game, that's where that value is. And I think people are using knowledge because I don't think they know actually how to grow people and help people. I think they think that knowledge is the way to go. So I love that you're saying that, because talking at someone, that's just knowledge dumping. And it's more about the person giving the advice, because if I always say, when someone says, if someone gives you advice without asking a question, don't listen to them. It's like, hey, Ben, what do you think of this? Well, what I would do is this. I go, hey, where are you at? What do you want? Because if I can't tailor my advice to your story and your beliefs and your inner work and whatever you are, then I'm not even a coach. I'm just a data dumper. Mm-hmm. It's like, well, listen to me. I'll tell you how to do it. That's like my dad, just go get a trade. I'm like, you're not even asking me if I want a fucking trade. See, so I feel like I love that you're at that place where you're like, I'm not going to talk at you. And I think it's so important to have so many people out there just to support people for real. You know what I mean? Yeah. Versus talk at them, because we don't even know what people are, where people are at. How can we give advice to it's like a shotgun. Hopefully I hit something.
Well, and I feel like everyone who's doing the you need to is completely basing it off of their experience typically. Yeah. And that's what worked for them. And there's infinite possibilities for what could work for that person, for someone else. Yeah,
there's so many ways. You got to figure out what people want, right? And so let me ask you this. You've kind of hinted at a couple of things. I don't know if it was this on recording or off recording. Give me an example of a personal breakthrough you've had. Something that was like, okay, this was massive.
I would probably say the personal breakthrough for me was just really tapping into what I want and really noticing how unhappy I was back in like 2018, 2019. And just because you have the title and you have the car and you have the house and all these things does not mean that you're happy. Like,
For sure.
For me, like I've always like, I didn't buy a house for the longest time. And thankfully I missed the whole like housing bubble crash and everything. I did end up buying a house, but as soon as I had it, it felt like a money pit. It felt like a drain. It felt like this like root or like this weight. And
you're stuck now.
And, you know, for me, I think just really questioning, I've always been like, if you're not happy, try something else. And so I've always been that way. But for me, trying something else was trying a different job, trying a different city. I've moved away 4 times because I don't know, I'm running from something. In Arizona has my mom, dad, and sister here. I definitely hate the summer, but like I kept moving. And, you know, I finally got the house, I did all that. And then it's like, I'm still not happy. So I was like, you know, I think I need to go and do something radically different. And I always have had an entrepreneurial type spirit. I think I was just overthinking it all. I was like, you need to have the perfect idea. I need to like it for at least 7 years.
So done.
I got to have the right capital. I got to have the right people. All the stars need to align. And it's like, they don't. And I think the biggest thing is getting over that hurdle of like, you don't have to have a job and you don't have to have an income, and giving myself the space and the opportunity to just be and like see where life takes me and actually have time to process it.
You'll actually gain the data you need on the other side of the perfection, because you got to actually, it's like you can't learn unless you literally do. So the planning, you're literally missing data. You literally can't solve it's 1 plus something is something. No, you got to make a move. I remember when I started this podcast, I was like, we're 100 and some episodes in, and it's like, I just did it. And it's like, I learned so much. I even changed the name of it after 20 some episodes. I'm like, shit, I'm going to change the name. There's something resilient and rebellious I love about it. I love the rebellious feeling of like, I'm going to change it. It's like, that's not the way to do it. You got to, I'm like, you know what? We're doing really well. Like I started an online training program and I literally didn't have it developed, but I filled it up and I'm like, let's go. And I'm like, and I knew that what I had was good enough, but if I would, now I'm 4 in, like 4 times around, and you know, I'm making $60,000 every single time, 70,000, and it's like good money. And it's like, and I started, if I would have thought it through, I would have just self-sabotaged it. And so I think the data I needed was the first round to fix the second round, to do the third round. And I could never get the data without actually going into it. So it's one of those, I love the fact that you just pull the trigger, you get the data you need.
Correct. And that was like an emotional thing for me. And I think if I really, really boil it down, I think it all boils down to fear. And that's what I'm seeing with most people. My perfectionism is one of them that holds me back by far, because you said good enough and I'm really struggling.
Isn't that terrible? Isn't that those words? I know what you mean. It's when when I'm working with people, I'll say, how do these words feel to you? Like that good enough is like, I used to be the same. Like I was number 1 on everything I did. Ashley, everything. And, but the insanity was, it was a big cost to me, because number 1 or nothing. It wasn't number 1 or, hey, I did good. It was number 1 or nothing. So I had 2 options. So I sold $2.5 million of office furniture. Like I bought 61 rental properties. I'm like, I'm gonna be an investor. So I have 41 rental properties in 14 months. I became a real estate agent. I made $1 million in 2 years. Like I just have this, but the cost was almost divorce. My kids didn't like me. I had a temper. The inner game was shit. And it's like this whole process, it was like the cost just came too high. I realized, fuck, I can actually go faster, bigger by actually not worrying about number 1, and you can enjoy your life. Like, it's like I don't know what it is. Like we're programmed that way, or we got beat up as a kid, and just, I don't know what happens, but yeah, that cost of it is high now in my world.
Yeah. And I mean, I think that the cost of not starting is higher. And like just fear in general with people, like fear of what other people think, fear of failing, fear of disappointing someone, fear of leaving your relationship. it's sad. Like we live in fear. And I'm not bringing up a political topic, but like my whole trip like imploded this year because of COVID and the fear that has happened because of media and everything is unbelievable. Like we shut down the entire world and we have not even begun to see what the ripple effects of that is going to be.
So crazy. I know, I'm with you.
Yeah. And it's just like industries and people of power, they feed on that fear that we have. And, you know, just making that step is huge. And I think another thing is, you know, everything left brain. My whole career was left brain, like the analytical, the
so
smart
logic. And yeah, if you're running like CRMs and crazy, like, that's like,
guess what?
I'm like, you could probably help me.
AI and robots, that's the first thing to get replaced is the left brain. And so with this whole transition, I've really been focusing on the right brain because AI cannot take your personality, your brand, and your creativity. And it really is just being willing to go and try a new app, go try and video edit your own thing, go try a reel, go like, we have to become more creative.
Love it. I think I love what you're saying. Obviously, I'm probably more creative than I am logical, but the thing is, I love that so much. I love the angle that you came at, is that even from a strategy, I just eating this up right now because it's like, of course, you're going to be replaced. What an interesting angle. These engineered, logical people that are the intellects even. Like all of this is in and it's like, whoa, that's you compared to a computer, you're nothing. Like your brain, it's the other side that can't be replaced. Love that. I'm like literally sitting on that. Great point, Ashley. Love that one. Yeah. I'm gonna eat that up. Like there's this really cool girl that told me this thing that's coming soon. Like this is a great one. I coach people and teach all the time, and it's and mentor to people. I'm using that. And I'm like, yeah, you want to be replaced? That because I love the motivation behind that. It's like, oh yeah.
I knew when I came out of college that, you know, technology was where it was at. I just didn't know how I was going to get into that. And then I somehow like, you know, the world conspires to help you. Salesforce kind of just dropped in my lap and I took that and I could make an entire career out of that, like my whole life. But I was like, I don't want to be on my deathbed being remembered as the
Salesforce lady.
Or like the person who ran operations. Like I want to be the badass bitch that like shattered all the status quo. I went out and traveled and saw the world and then like not be on my deathbed with a whole bunch of regrets.
Love it.
And I think a ton of people make excuses. Like even people with kids and stuff. Are we super happy with the education system here? What if the world was the education system? Half the things that are being taught, more than half the things being taught are not applicable to real life anymore.
It is so lame. We got 5 kids and I didn't even graduate. I got my general equivalence diploma. I'm built to rebel. I'm built to be an entrepreneur as well. The schooling is such a waste of time in so many levels. You get me going here because I'm watching my kids. Like my son has a map of Canada. Okay. He has to color them. This is grade 7. Okay. Color them. And then you have to put the names of them. I'm going, what are we doing? It's called fucking Google. And the moment he wants to travel, he'll learn that in 9 fucking seconds. It drives me crazy.
Neural linking is happening where you will actually be tapped into Google. You can think of something and you can essentially Google it and it will be there.
It's so crazy, like memory. It is true, the dinosaur. But what your point is why not think and challenge the norm? Why not just be like, it's okay to stand alone and do your thing? And I think that's where maybe me and you have a deeper connection. Like this is where I'm like, let's rebel. Like it's not rebel, but you know what I mean? It's like, why not just challenge everything along the way? My thing is this: build a life you love, paid for by a business that you can build. Don't build a business to be rich. Build a business to pay for the life that you dream of. Most people forget to plan that life. They just go into planning the profit. It's like, why not just say, here's the life I want. And I love what you're doing. You're literally living it, going, here's a life. I got to figure out a business that can pay for it. Love that. That's literally my entire, like, you put that on my tombstone right now. It's like, this is what we do. Build a life you love, paid for by a business.
Right. And my thing is, when I was younger, it was, I didn't take vacation. Like even like I was so burnt out with work to even think about my personal myself was like not even an option. So I finally started inserting like, you have to make time. You have to plan a trip. So it just started with like a trip. And in my mind, it was like more. And I've gotten to this place where it's like, no, I want to figure out how to live with less. And if I can find a place that has a high quality of life and a low cost, and my self-love and my self-care and my health is at an optimal level, I've now redefined what success and what living is for me. And if the money aspect and everything somehow manifests, like not even crushing it, that's fine with me. I think I do really believe in some semblance of more money, more problems. I mean, money is great. It does get you out of a bind, for sure. Like you need a certain level, but yeah, this constant, like, I need more.
I was there. I was that guy, and it literally almost cost me marriage, cost me my health, cost me so much stuff, friends. Like the cost, we don't value other things. I think there's conversations that we're having right now are happening everywhere. I think there's going to be people that are going to be influential in very powerful places that have these beliefs that can make those changes. I think there's just too many people that went through the build for the retirement plan, build for your retirement. They're realizing at 60, you have 5 more years to really give her. Like it's just bullshit for this next generation and the generation of my son. Man, he's so far from that. It's unbelievable. Like I get being smart financially, but living for that as your singular goal. And one of the greatest fears in the world is I don't have enough money to make it to the end. Well, no one talks about cutting expenses. Well, then go live in a freaking tent. I don't want to do that. Yeah, you want 4 vacation homes and 15. Okay, well then I can tell you how you can stop that fear, but sell your vacation homes.
Yeah.
Well, but then they're not happy, and that inner game's not being worked on.
Well, that's because they're putting their value and their worth in material objects, and they haven't done the work.
They haven't done the work. Exactly. That's new gen. So time's coming to an end here, Ashley. I think it's really cool, the compilation of what we have on this show, where it's from you showing this whole body transformation and all that process, and hearing a lot about your own journey and how the work. I love that. I think you'll inspire a lot of people on this show. What I usually do is I always ask to flip the tables on my guests, because I like to learn too. And I think I always leave, and I never tell anyone I'm going to do this, but I have to say, if you want to ask me a question, if there's any question you want to ask me, and you can anything, there's nothing off limits. I'll answer a question, and usually I can learn that way, and it's kind of fun.
Okay, so there is one thing that I have been thinking in the back of my mind that I wanted to mention, but then it'll segue into the question. With this whole taboo element of plastic surgery, the one thing that I've learned from stories is, this one female in particular is coming to mind, and I had no idea about this. Like, I know that it was hard for me to tell certain people, and the people who have the most judgment are the ones that are closest to you, like your best friends and your family. This woman is willing to go through this surgery by herself, like 0 people to help her from the surgery center, to help her the first few days, because she doesn't have anyone close to her. Her parents are super religious and judgmental. And that is crazy to me, that people are living in that much fear or judgment of wanting to change something about themselves. But I think that this is important to say, like, for her, she wants to get this area of her body fixed, because guess what? She's actually not dating right now. She does not want to take her clothes off in front of a man. And like, her parents are pressuring her to get married and to be with someone. And so these insecurities could be like debilitating to people. And, I think that if you have the money and you're doing it smart, and you research your doctors, and you're doing it within reason and have realistic expectations, like, plastic surgery can be transformative. And I don't think that means that you don't love yourself. So I just wanted to put that out there for people. Like, if your body image issues are actually inhibiting you from having connection or relations and you're isolating yourself, like, I think that that's very important to address. Like, whether it's with plastic surgery, with a combination of like therapy to do the work. But to that point, considering since this was a topic, I'm curious, Ben, if there is a particular part of your body, knowing what you know now and being less judgmental, that you would particularly want to fix. Or
you know what? I think, let me think about this for a second. I think I've done a ton of inner work, like so much inner work. I do think it's a lot easier for men than women because a fat guy can get a hot girl. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? At the end of the day, the way the world thinks, there's definitely easier being.
I think we are pushing back on that though. Successful females who are starting to bring home the cheddar as well. We're like, I'm still working out for you and bringing
you're kind of fat. So yeah, totally. You know what? I don't know. I think I'd be really scared of the operations. It's probably where I go in my head. If it was really easy, well, I'd probably be like, I probably would. I'd be like, hey, let's check this out. Maybe hair. Okay. So here's the thing. I don't know if you look back at some of my social media, somewhere in the deep part of my social media, I have a picture of when I got married and I had wicked dreads, believe it or not. I had dreads down to here. Yeah, I was 6-pack. I look like a surfer. Now I look like I don't know what the hell I look like now, like a dad. But the thing is, I think if it was easy, like to have hair, like I love hair, girls and guys. I'm like looking at people's hair. I'm like, look at that guy's hair. Look at this girl's hair. I don't know what it is. And I'm sitting there bald. And so I think I would probably do something, but like that would be something. But I think I'm way too scared to get like cut and all of that. So I think it's a hard question for me to answer because I got to get over the fear of actually getting operated on. I think that's where I'd be at. So
for real. So I will say, after going down my deep rabbit hole of all these non-invasive options, if you are wanting to research it, there is a lot of promising results with PRP injections mixed with stem cell.
For hair?
Yep. And injections, no like transplants, no plugs, no nothing.
Yeah, you just see this thing poking my head 5,000 times. I'm like, I'll go bald. Once I shave her up, I'm a pretty good looking bald guy. But the thing is, it's only one option. Bald, bald or what I've got going today. My wife loves the rusty look, so I'm okay. Like, it's not like she's sitting there going, clean yourself up. I try to shave a bit and she's like, come on. I'm just like the burly guy. So I'm like, sometimes I'm like, she likes the scruff. I'm like, okay, I don't care too much. Ashley, I've been rejected and beat up so much in my life. I've had to be forced to like stand alone and truly be okay with who I am. I'm in a really good place right now. But if I could do the hair, if I really started thinking about it, I'd probably get some hair.
Well, I don't know if you saw through the feed, you meet Lexi every once in a while. So just randomly this year as well, I was like, I want to know what I look like with long hair because
I saw that. I was like, what the heck? What the heck?
So I actually went out and got a wig. I just was like, I'm going to try them on. And trust me, I was totally against the whole thought of it. And I was like, you know what? I'm just going to go try it because I want to see what I would look like with long hair. And I went to this place and tried on a bunch and I was like, ooh, that's cool. Pretty. But my hair would never grow out that way. It's not that thick. It doesn't have that texture. So I experimented with the wig and now I have Lexi and I just bought like a rose gold one. So nice. It's fun to like play with your identity.
You know what, Ashley, I'll tell you something. I have a group called Business from Within. So it's a group of 12, 13, 14 max people I mentor for 1 year. It's like my VIP kind of mastermind group. And I'll take them on 2 retreats a year. And then we do some group sessions and some one-on-ones and different things. And so I've been doing this for years, but we were just in Vancouver in October. And I thought, how can I get people to truly be okay with who they are and get over themselves? And I thought, you know what? So I went to a costume shop. I bought 17 wigs, legit ones. And I'm like, so I showed up. I'm like, hey guys, we're going to be going for lunch. But first, and I came out wearing this crazy wig. And I said, and they think it's funny and everything. I'm like, hey, here's yours. We're talking people from like 20 years old to 60 some years old. And I'm like, everyone's wearing a wig, and we're going down to the market, to the Lonsdale market. And so we were all out there wearing these crazy wigs. And what happened was the opposite of judgment happened. We raised the energy in the entire place because everyone's like, what's happening? And we were having the time of our life. And it was the coolest exercise to walk around, because obviously they're a little bit embarrassed at first, but to get used to that feeling. But it reminded me of that story, like is that the wigs changed their identity, and they're walking around. Like, I had some dumb ones too, so I made sure it was not as easy as people would say. But I love those exercises. I love that try and understand what.
And again, like again, with trying first and like stepping outside of your comfort zone, because guess what? A lot of those people probably had judgment and thought wigs are taboo, but you usually get positive feedback.
Yeah,
because,
it's not what you think all the time.
Yeah, Lexi, although like I'm nervous, I'm like, can they see the lace front? Like,
it seems weird. Yeah.
Like, they probably think it's fake. But in the end, like, she makes me feel like very sexy and beautiful. And then I take this off, which I'm used to platinum. I went natural for the travel, but then I get like the spunky side. So it's like I get the best of both worlds, kind of. And
I love it.
It gives you.
I like living. There's no rules. I love the no rules. I love the feeling of no rules. It's like you have to challenge the old, and then so you can be free. Like, it's just, we've adopted so many beliefs. We've adopted, like, I grew up in a really religious home. So in a weird way, I had to risk hell to be me. And that was a huge journey I had to risk, because it's religion, right? And so you have to risk to be yourself. Sometimes you got to take the risks. But you know what, Ashley, I just want to say thank you so much for jumping on the show. I'm excited we can be sharing this in probably a week or two. And thank you so much for sharing. And I'm so glad that we got to do this.
Yeah, I appreciate it. I'm glad that you were my first podcast interview.
Yeah, me too.